So, what's going on, everybody? It's Nate from Photo One Creators, and welcome back to the Photo Winners podcast. Now, I know you all have been watching or listening to our past episodes of If I Were in My 20s, right? So, this is a new series that I just decided to throw into our mix. You know, we've been doing like a lot of CEOs and stuff like that before, but on the talent end of my business, I've been having a lot of candidates asking me about long-term career advice and even just life advice, period. So I'm like, okay, what's the best way that I can go about doing this? Because number one, I find you roles. So I find you roles, but I want to add a lot of value, but I don't want to just guess and just throw something in your face. I want to actually go to a good source and then have them give you real solid advice and real solid what I would do type of scenarios and stuff like that. So that's why I started this If I Were in My 20s show. And just the feedback I've gotten off people, off me just saying, hey, I'm starting this show, it's been like, wow, like this is something that, you know, I needed, or something that I've been looking up on YouTube or looking into for podcasts, or even paid for in some instances. So saying that to say, we are here with my guy Ron, and Ron, he has over 20 years of experience in UX, user experience. So for people who are probably watching this who aren't even in this career field, when I say UX, I'm talking about user experience. So yeah, so I'll let him give like a little, pretty much an introduction. He can do it way better than I can of who he is and his past, and you know what he's doing right now. So go ahead, Ron. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nate. Yeah, so my name is Ron. I am currently a UX product designer. I like to call myself. I don't like to get into like nitty gritty of design, right? There's so many just different disciplines, right? But in general, I like just to call myself just a problem solver, right? So any business, service, hardware, software, anything in between, I like to kind of go to the different entities, different groups, and be the sort of the connected glue to be able to communicate, to really dig in, and then asking some hard questions, be able to utilize my design thinking process, as well research, as well as, and then applying that to my creative thought process, and then do sketch, and then be able to really coming up with some of these solutions that we actually facing today. And we look at social issues, we look at economical issues, and then there's also technology issues that we're facing. So we look at from all different disciplines, all different perspectives, and be able to solving this problem. Um, I grew up in China. I came as an immigrant when I was very little, and went through the whole schooling process in Texas. And when I graduated, I went to high school, went to Austin for the next 5.5 years, and went to University of Texas there. I took a art program. Started off as engineer, just like any Asian parents, they want their kids to be engineer. So I did that. Didn't like it, didn't want to go through it. And it's better to realize that early in the stage, and then be able to realize that and do something that you truly love. So I did studio art with emphasis on design, right? So digital, anything that's a digital product. There is some psychology involved, right? There is some technology involved. There's some even product management that's happening, and as well as business. So you kind of merge all that, and at the intersection of that is really just design, right? It takes business needs, it takes the needs of a user, right? Like everybody that we talk to, we have to come from a problem, um, pain point, user pain point. If we don't discover what pain point, we're really just looking, we're coming up with a solution that's looking for a problem. So we want to go the opposite direction. We want to look for the problem that's in society today, and how might we solve those issues, right? So then after college, my first job was like and Taiwan out of nowhere, right? Because if you're in Texas, you want to kind of get out, and you want to explore the rest of the world. So that's kind of what I did, and it just went on broad and worked for this company called ASUS. This is the Asian way to say it. It's ASUS, ASUS, right? A lot of people say ASUS or ASUS, but the proper pronunciation is as ASUS, like ASUS. So back then they didn't even have, like, they barely had notebooks. They had like motherboards. How are you gonna sell a motherboard? So I work at the brand global brand sort of department, where we look at all the different type of products that we can market out. So it was really a product marketing job at that point, and then making like websites, making like flyers, making advertisement. Back in the old days where magazine was rampant. There's newspaper and magazines, all these physical things. So we made all that. And then I got transferred to California. So I never knew I was gonna go to California, but hey, I was young, I was single, like
Yeah.
whatever's. So I went with the flow. When live in Fremont, California, and it was a significant raise, my first job, right? Just got after about 6 months, got a big promotion, and then went to their field office. They're like, Ron, we have an issue to market notebooks and the North America market, right? So back then, ASUS wasn't in Best Buy, wasn't in all the retail chain. So how do you take something that's so significant, not heard of, into something that's so popular today, right? So in the gaming community, no one today have not heard of ASUS.
Right.
But so I did that for the next 2-3 years, and then one of my roommate, went to this green company called Nvidia. So I was like, well, I don't mind. Let me try that for a bit. So, but the job title is a contract position. So I was like, okay, well, I'm okay. I'm open with that. It's a pathway to a full-time employee after about a year, but there is no promises, right? So you kind of go in blind and just hey, it's pretty cool. I love I love like what they're doing at that time, and it was the G80 processor, the first compute processor that was shipping. And I still remember the campaign manager. My first day at a job was to hold the camera and then do a video shoot, and then immediately edit the video, right? So it was doing a lot of nitty gritty work that some very entry level, right? Very like not a lot of problem throw at you, but just a lot of like a common task you have to perform as a kind of entry level, so I did that for the next 7 years, but not doing that, but progressively when providing solution into the enterprise world, doing the sort of the CUDA, compute, the Quadro servers, and then all the way to gaming. So then I started to get into the Shield, the Shield Portable was the first product that actually like really drive home from scratch, from like doing all the UX work, and then working with the designers, like all different design researchers, people who make ID packagings, people doing research, usability research. So that was like the one time I really had fun, like making a difference in the product conception from beginning to end. I call it end-to-end solution, right? Where in the marketing, you don't really get to do that. You come after a product has been determined already, right? So there's not much sugar you can do to sprinkle on a cake and then try to shift that experience. But to work as a UX designer, give you the know-how, and then the reward that you are actually changing the product, shaping the product as it becomes into reality. So I really love that, and I want a career path. So, but 7 years at Nvidia, I was like, okay, let's look for something new, right? Work. Google was hiring at that time. Motorola Mobility was just spinning out from the Motorola solution. So I joined Google to make the first vanilla Android phone that came to be the Pixel phone. So it's a Moto X, which is the predecessor to the all the Pixel phones that we know today. Vanilla, super vanilla, no bloatware, everything that a user can ask for. This is where Android, in 2013 really took off, really became something. And from that point on, Android just really became more a viable product. People that even today, just majority of the mobile market is be able to adopt. So working on the first Android wearable Moto 360, that was fun. So doing UX, like meaning not designing the hardware, right, but bridging the gap between hardware and software, right? So there's a lot of things that you can do when the product is shipping, but there's also services that's around it, right? So one of the primary product that I worked on was getting a Android phone into the Chinese market. So how do you do that? You can't, there's no Google services in China, thanks to the Great Wall, right? There's all these services are different. When you go to Chinese market, all the voice agents are different. You don't have Google, you don't have Alexa, you don't have all that, right? So we will have to plug into like a third party, back then it was called iFlyTech, like plug into different voice agent, right? And then you have Baidu, as a search engine provider. So you have Baidu apps that's preloaded onto that Android. But it's a really good experiment and learning, right? Because when you come up with a solution from a different angle to a whole new different culture, even if I'm speaking the language, it doesn't matter, right? I still have to learn, like I still have to do research as a designer to be able to really understand like my foreign customers base, right? And then be able to talk to the people that are on the ground, like knowing like living there for a long time, and be able to understand their market. And then you could develop like newer solutions for those type of markets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and one of the things that I was really proud was designing this configurator, it's called Moto G configurator. And so basically Android was like really, really hard to kind of break the barrier for entry, for say, we call it emerging markets, right? So we were able to sell a $40 Android phone, $40 dual core Android phone, right? For people who they don't make a lot of money, but they want to do business. They want, like, you wouldn't believe, in a village, right? I could have one phone. I don't have a computer, right? People don't have electricity. I have a phone, right? That I could solar charge it. I could do, some sort of charging mechanism. And I am running my bank. I'm running everything. I'm running my business, all that on a single phone, right? So in the US, because we're all blessed. We're all, in a very good home and condition, and we have computers, we have laptops, we have everything. But in India, right, in certain places, people just rely on a $40 phone, and be able to make their entire living out of it. And just it's very, very, very different situation. So to be able to design for that market and then be able to fulfill people's dreams and be able to change their life on a very fundamental way, it's a huge impact, right? So yeah, so then after Motorola spin out, and then Google wanted to sell Motorola to Lenovo, I ended up joining HP as a result, and we worked on some incredible products, from anywhere from scanning your feet and getting a 3D printed shoe, like and 20 minutes when you drink a coffee. It's incredible. We made so many different products. It's crazy. I and then I got into the gaming division, which is we call it the Omen. And you reached out to me. I play a lot of games, as you can see my PC game collection. But this is the days where PC are still in the box, so I kind of collect them. But now everything's in Steam. You could have it all in the under my library. So now I'm working with Omen, and we're making just incredible amount of different hardware services under the Omen brand by HP. Yeah, so it's just incredible.
So let me ask you this question here. So from at point A, getting to where you are right now, what would you have done differently from where you started to where you're at right now? What would you have done differently?
Yeah, so there are a couple regrets in my career path that I could have done it differently, right? I could have stayed in Texas, right? But then for me as a designer, I would have never seen the world. So in a way, I am glad I made the move into like the international water and then go kind of beyond that. So that is not a regret. That is something that I wanted to do. But I kind of wish that I stayed more in in that international side, right? Where I can learn, I could stay a little bit longer and then learn more about the culture, and even maybe work at other locations. I was given the offer to work in Singapore, but because I have a family, right? So it's really hard to
So
relocate.
you're saying that you wish that you would have stayed and worked in Texas, or you
I
wish over.
I wish I would have stayed international more rather than go to California faster, right? I went to California because I just was single. I didn't have anything. I didn't have any baggages, right? But after you have a family, like later on, so I had a family much later on, years later, so I wouldn't be able to do that anymore. So travel more if you can when you're younger, when you're in 20s, right? So that's one of the advice I would give out. Travel more, because if you travel, you're likely to see new things. You're likely to meet newer opportunities. You're less likely to be stuck in one location and kind of be just very stale, right? But as you get older, then try to root yourself more. Try to stay at a company a little bit longer, right? Because you could then build your wealth that way. So I mean, we can cover many topics today, but like things like stability, even finance, right? Job security, those are all like very good topic that we can kind of touch upon. But one of my regrets is actually here, shout out to all my friends at Nvidia. They're all millionaires, by the way. Congrats. When I went in, it was like a $40 stock market. But this is a financial decision, right? So when you join a company, if you're younger in your 20s, you're most likely to be given a thing. You got your offer letter, right? You got your salary. There's another thing that you're given to. It's called options, right? So options are very important. I lost probably about $3 million, like roughly, by turning in my option, by cashing in my option too early. So it means that Nvidia had an option buyback, basically like penny on the dollar. So it's roughly about 12K. 12K is it's a lot of money to some people.
That you have $3 million right now if you
worth before, yeah.
Wow.
So what I did back then, it was at 40. So I was like, well, the Nvidia stock is never gonna go past 40, right? In my time there, because so what I have to do is pay $40 per share, for like something like 8,000 shares, right? That's a lot of money that a young person will not have, right?
So was your thought process during that time? Because this is very interesting. So
Yeah.
like your thought process during that time, were you working at that company because it was an opportunity for you to get a role, or were you working there because you genuinely believed in the company?
Oh,
Because like,
both. Oh, definitely. I would say it's both. But even at that, right? Because the stock during that time was like at $6, $12 ish.
mhm,
And I was like, because when I was hired, it was at 40. So the problem with that is when your options at 40, you are locked in at the hiring date, right? So the hiring date is at 40. So essentially for me to exercise those stocks, I will have to pay back Nvidia money to buy it at $40, right? So to me, it's like a very expensive thing. So what I did is I took the $12,000 instead, right? I took the $12,000 instead. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna sell it back to the company because every year that I worked there, I could gain more. I could gain more. It's called RSU. And then there's another thing called ESPP. So ESPP is basically you when you work at a large company, you're gonna get this opportunity. It's basically a reduction, like a discount. You could purchase your company stock at a very good discount, and you could sell it the following year if you want, and you can make about 20% higher than what you would pay. So, so, so the three types stock that we talked about was, just quick review, right? Options. That's the one, the thing you're gonna get, when you get hired, you could negotiate that. So you could negotiate a higher number if you like. There's RSU, so that's based on performance. That's a bonus stock every Christmas you get or every quarter, right? And then there's ESPP, which is you buy it with your paycheck. So you could spend like 10% of your paycheck, 8% of paycheck to purchase that stock. So combination of three that will give you more wealth over time. I forfeited the first one. Forfeit just means I cashed out early. I got my 12K. I was happy, right? 12K is not a lot, but
you were
but do you but if you were 40, right? If you're in your 40s, if you knew the Nvidia stock gonna go up to 600 each, wouldn't you keep those 8,000 shares? Right? If you knew, but knowing that you have to pay $40 for it at that time. So I would have probably took a loan to
what
do
was
that.
your relationship like with the founder?
Oh, it's great. Like he took us to like Jensen Huang took us to
How often
paintball and everything.
did the founder cast the vision of the company?
You mean like his vision?
Yeah, how often did he cast the vision of the company?
Oh, every day. Like he's very ahead of his time, right? So um I think a lot of my career decisions based on that. Like even I'm at HP now. I'm actually shipping more NVIDIA products than when I was at NVIDIA. I mean it. I'm not kidding. All the Omen machines that we ship, all the different notebooks that we have, they're all driven by NVIDIA. They're powered by NVIDIA graphics. I am still a big advocate of NVIDIA, by the way.
Yeah, so like that's very interesting. Like that's that's super interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so a few years after I joined NVIDIA, I bought my first house. This was the economic downturn, right? So um I talk a lot often about finance, right? Because I do believe career, finance, and personal growth, they're all intertwined, they're all related. You
Mhm.
cannot do one without the other, right? You grow in terms of like having a family, getting married. Those are all great things. you know as a designer, you want to get your family straight. You want to get your personal life straight. Whenever I interview people, I I look at, how well is this person? Is this person able, is she or he be able to manage themselves, right? But if their self is a mess, then it's very hard for that person to come to work every day and be able to be 100%, right?
Very true.
So this is the major reason why a company actually do credit score check nowadays, right? They want to see what type of person you are, outside of work? Do you have a huge debt, right? Are you a responsible person, right? I'm not even talking about jail and all that stuff, but that's kind of given, right? But are you a responsible person? Do you pay off your bills in time? Do you have a credit card debt, right? So my advice to people in the 20s, right? Get your finance straight, because if you get your finance straight, you're gonna be in a much better position when you come to your 40s. So anyway, short story, I did cash out the stock, right? My options at least, and then was saving that money to buy a house. So instead, I went to got a house, right? So now, California house has been kind of blowing up, right? So we bought it at 600K. So now it's at 1.4 million, right? So yes, I do lost 3 million, but I do gain like house in return. So it's kind of like I don't think there's a bad decision in life. It's just a different decision. So I took a different decision. I end up getting a house. Now we're renting it out to someone, right? So we're getting $3,500 every month. So we're trading in, we're diversifying our portfolio really. We're taking what's in the stock, right, and then putting it onto real estate. So just moving numbers around at the end of the day. To me, yeah, could I make more money as a result? Yeah, absolutely. I could be rolling in 3 million, but to be honest, I had a blast like outside of NVIDIA too, right? I learned so much. I wrote 27 intellectual property, 27 IPs in my life. After that, developed so many different devices that people, that change people's lives. So yes, there are some financial decisions that I made when I was in my 20s that was rather questionable, but they were just different. Yeah.
So to combat that decision that you made, what would you tell a person in your shoes to evaluate in order to make the appropriate decision at that moment?
Yeah. Try to think about your company's future and then evaluate it based on what you think is best, right? And then trying to see if whatever you're doing could fit your lifestyle. Don't try to squander money away earlier on, right? If you're young, try to save your money any way you can, right? If you're paying rent, if you're paying high rent, um, stop doing that. Try to save it for a house so you could pay it to yourself. So all the paycheck every month that you're gonna get, you're actually paying it to yourself, toward yourself. So this is a great way to force yourself to save money. It's a good habit to form as early as possible, because if you buy a house now, in 10 years time, in 20 years time, when you reach 40, that house could make more money for you down the road, right? So as a person, if you ever look at the Poor Dad Rich Dad video, right, you kind of understand. You need to grow your wealth to a point where, to reach financial freedom, you need to be at a point where you're having other houses where you could get a passive income. When your passive income reaches, when your passive cash flow reaches to a point where it's equal to the paycheck that you're getting from a employer, then you are free that day. If you get laid off, if for any reason, economy downturn, you are essentially protected. So as a young person, I talk to all my coworkers this way. I actually encourage, two of my coworkers are buying a house this year, and then they're in their 20s. So I recommend anybody to do the same thing. I don't charge people to do these talks, right? But I do, from my own perspective, from my own learnings, I do feel, I got my house a little bit later. I got my house like when I was in my 28, my 30. So try to get your house early, right? Even like a condo, a small house that you're gonna be glad you did, like 20 years down the road. You could move.
I have another interesting question though.
Yeah.
Where were you mentally in your 20s, and what do you wish you would have done to combat whatever ways that you were feeling like in your 20s, you know, and moving forward? Because a lot of people are battling different things in their lives, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
what what was really going through your mind? Like, what were you really going through during those times, and what do you wish you would have done to combat or resolve or you know deal with the things that you were going through during that stage? And you may still be going through those things now, but it's like at a different point, you know what I'm saying? So like you're saying, not to say, when you were in your 20s, like what what would you tell yourself? What would you try to involve yourself with or get your, what, pretty much, if that question makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, I think especially nowadays, young people are affected by by mental health, right? It's a huge topic, right? I do have a dark past. When I was a child, in China, left in China, I was left behind a little bit from by my parents. But when they were immigrating to the U.S., I had many years just by myself, right? And it wasn't life wasn't good, as a 6-year-old, right? So that gap I can never make up for. Like with my dad, with my mom, I can. It's a blank. I don't have any memories of that. But to combat that, it's really good to talk about it. It's really good to let go of that past kind of that kind of state, right? Don't let that drag you or dragging you as a career or personal or even starting a family. So I did the opposite of that. I kind of just left all that behind. I made my resolve with those people that kind of affected me. But then at the end, it's kind of like a way to break it out of that cycle is to really prove them that you are a better person in the end, right? So I started my own family. I provided for my two girls. I provided for my wife, and at the end, it's like you aren't in that vicious circle. You aren't repeating that history again. So I think that is a huge to get away from, right? So move on, look forward, and try to make a better version out of the whoever that did you wrong, right? So that helped me a lot immersely trying to um, be that better person, right? So whether you're at your job, looking at these issues that we face today, and then coming up with these solutions, or on a personal level, you're finding a new hobby, right? Or finding some positive energy that you could channel your anger or your depression into. So I think it's really important to do for young people to do that. Um, does that hopefully that answers some of the
Yeah.
question?
So people go through these like depression like funks, right? They may go through a funk where we're like in it for like a few weeks or like
It's a cycle, right?
like
Yeah,
a cycle, right?
yeah,
So uh most people in their 20s don't really understand how to deal with that, or like what things that they should be, doing, or it's kind of like you have to create a strategy almost for how to
yeah,
combat that to the point where you're still able to be productive.
yeah.
You know,
I
so
think back in the old days, right? Back in the old days, where just 20 years ago, when I was in my 20s, I feel like mobile phone. Let's talk about that a little bit, right? Because I think that's important. I feel like mobile phone and social media wasn't what it was not what it is now, right? So as you look at social media, like all the things that you see, just like it's a constant flow of information. It's a really just overload, right? You could call me like a dinosaur or whatever, right? But if you scroll through LinkedIn, if you scroll through Facebook, right? Whatever vertical social media you of your choice, you could be in there for hours and days, and that would not end, right? So I'm not bashing, what Facebook's doing. I'm not bashing what, people are doing. I'm just saying that young people start to lose that focus when they're focused on just the things that aren't really true, right? So people putting like really good photos, really good like everything on there, but then you don't really know what's going on. People don't post ugly side of their family. They don't do that. They have an argument, they have a fight, they have a divorce. People don't post that stuff online, right? So as a user, right? So this is a problem. We're constantly bombarded by these things, especially now, right? Um, when I was in my 20s, we didn't have that problem. Like I didn't have a phone where I'm constantly scrolling and doing the left swipe or doing the right swipe. I wasn't doing that. Life was much simpler, where you could actually focus on a lot of things that you want to improve, right? So my recommendation to my 20-year-old out there is really look within, and then try to improve yourself, right? Don't kind of go out there and look for everything constantly, because things are constantly changing. You put your reliance on a pop star, on a celebrity, on a person, like another someone you call a hero, right? But at the end of the day, that person is going to disappoint you. So try to improve yourself rather, right? Look for the things that you really wanted to do, you really want to achieve. Do you want to go travel? Fine, make that a goal, right? Do you want to have 2 houses when you're 30 or 3 houses when you're 40? Make that a goal, write it down, right? And then try to achieve those goals. Put your foot down onto the ground and just be rooted, be rooted in, so you're not drifting all the time, right? A lot of the people that I've seen in the industry many years, what they like to do is, oh, there's a better offer at company XYZ. I'm gonna go join them. They have better lunch, they have chicken wings, they have drinks. I'm gonna go over there, right? Okay, what happens when the pandemic hit? None of that stuff matters anymore. All the free food at Google. So what, right? Um, what I'm trying to say is, don't try to move around a lot, and because all these devices doing is every year people switch, people buy new ones, and just things are, it's too much, right? Try to find something that you're good at, fall in love with it, and then really just enjoy it and be good at it, right? So be an expert in something, right? We have a long career ahead of us. We all gonna live very long time. Find out what you're gonna be doing, and then maybe you could have several careers, doing different things, doing different interesting, that you're gonna be proud of. So try not to wander around too much, right? And yeah, and then pick up something that you're gonna be proud of later on.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that word. Now, just as a last, like concluding question, when it now this is more so a generic question, but when it comes to getting the role, right? The role that you want, what should you really be doing to prepare yourself to get the position that you want? Now, I'm pretty sure that you found a trend of things to do at when it comes to getting these positions, because they're not hiring you for no reason. So saying that to say, what would you be telling yourself back then, with all the knowledge that you have now? What would you be telling yourself back then to be doing, preparing, saying, etc.? What would you be telling yourself to really be that perfect go-to candidate for a role?
When you're looking for that job, there's always gonna be this unknown factor that's going to be scaring you a little bit, right? The sense of urgency that, oh, this company may not do well. The fact that, oh, you might have to move, you might have to relocate to another city, it could be months or years down, or whenever we reopen our economy, right? That's always going to be like a big question mark. So don't be afraid of those things, right? You're a young person, trying to, like, you could adapt a lot easier than someone with like large families, right? So try to move fast and move lightweight so you could do those things. And then second thing I would say is try to tell a story when you're looking for something, right? Try to let them see that you failed at one point in your life, right? Let them see the failures, but also let them see how you succeeded to conquer those things. I mentioned a lot of my life story whenever during my interview, during my one-on-one, right? I don't say that in front of a whole group, right? But that's what when you show off your work. But when you sit down one-to-one with your manager, right, and then you have a heart-to-heart conversation, talk about those things, right? Don't let that past burden you. Talk about these things. Talk about how you overcome it, right? Because you are the hero at the end of the day, and people want to see how resilient, people are at work. Because when they could see that, they know you are a survivor. They know you're gonna do much better moving forward. Even if there's an incoming storm, they know you will get through, right? So it's about overcoming these things, but not be afraid to talk about it. Um, and then my last one is probably, just be loyal, right? Like I said, that kind of goes of what I said a little bit earlier about rooting your feet onto the ground and finding, company these days, they really want people who are just not the outer shell, right? Who wanted to be the core of the apple. So if you look at the apple, right, the outer skin could be like rotten, could be whatever, right? People come and go, fine, but the inner core needs to be intact, right? That's fundamental for the survivability of a company, any company, right? If the inner core is like messed up, nobody, that company's not gonna last, right? So be proud of what you're going to be doing, contributing to that company. And it could be a startup, right? Put your heart and mind to it. Even though the stock option isn't that high, right? When I joined, don't lose faith on it, right? That's my regret. Don't lose faith. Don't cash out early, right? Try to stay on the boat a little bit longer, and just be able to contribute and be able to step in, especially when a startup, there are just so many different roles, right? So if there's a role that's kind of empty, don't complain, just get the job done, right? It's about getting things done in a manner where if somebody drops something, go and pick it up, right? Like do your part, right? Do your part, and then people will see it. People will see your actions, right? Your action is going to be louder than anything. So I've seen a lot of people move around the company, complain a lot, and then what happened is they simply move to another one and then complain a lot too, and over there, and then they move on. So you kind of follow their noise a little bit, but then but then it's not creating a good vibe for anybody, right? So at the end of the day, and people are gonna look, right? So job recruiters gonna look at your resume. They're going to be like, oh, how come you only lasted here for like 6 months? Like what happened there, right? So they're gonna be questioning these things, and you gotta be able to build your equity, right? Equity is a big word because a lot of people think equity is money, right? It's not exactly true. Like for example, I'll give you kind of a quick equity could be people equity. For example, if I have this expertise into something, everybody from different departments business unit, they're gonna come and ask you for this expertise, right? And that's good. That is a good thing. You're now a consultant. Congratulations. People are gonna ask you for these things whenever these things come up, and that's job security, right? And to me, that's another form of equity, right? So there's a social equity, people, like money equity too, right? So as I kind of want to talk about this 401k thing. So the longer you stay with the company and company will match, your 401k, the more wealth you're going to have when you retire. So if you move around a lot, no sir, you're not gonna, what's happening is your 401k is gonna switch from one to the other, and it's just gonna be a pain to consolidate all that when you're gonna retire, right? So if there's like a gap, your social security is gonna suffer, your 401k is gonna suffer, your Roth IRA is gonna suffer. So financially, you're gonna be penalized, right? When you kind of not be very stable, right? So try to be very stable at what you do and learn these things, because 2 years from now you're gonna be like expert, right? And then find a career path to be a manager. Why not? And if you're not a people manager, like if you don't want to manage people, because there are people that I just want to manage projects, I just want to manage things, I don't want to manage people, right? Personality is hard. Then move to a master level, move to expert level, right? Move to those level. Someone was telling me, when you go to the company, it's kind of like a rope making, right? So at first, entry level, you're learning how to make rope, you're learning how to make strings, and then the next level, the intermediate level, you're learning how to make strings into like knots, you're tying the knots, and then eventually you're building a bridge with the rope, right? So those are the things that you have to do and you have to learn. And by moving around, it's going to be very hard, right? So I encourage people to stay rooted, learn, be really good at what they do. And then if you're tired of the role, try to do an internal transfer, trying to move to a similar role that you're familiar to. That way you're keeping your equity, right? Because the same people still gonna come to you for your help. Even your previous workers that's gonna work with you. I work with different researchers too. So even if you move to a different team, that same researcher will come and talk to you and say, oh, what to do if I do this and this, and what are some of your um, uh, recommendations, right? So yeah, those are the topics.
I like that response, man. You really dropped a lot of valuable information in here, man. I really
Yeah.
I can honestly say this is one of the best episodes, man, that I've had recorded so far, man. I really appreciate you for coming on, Ron. So everyone who may be listening to this and watching this, I hope that this provided a lot of value to your situation. I hope you got a lot out of this interview here. And once again, I want to thank Ron for coming on, taking out some time to sit with me. And that's about it, you all. So this is another episode of If I Were in My 20s. Be sure to follow, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And until next time, peace for the win.